There and back again, a Goggins tale. Welcome to our new video, where we explore an intriguing what-if scenario. The Lord of the Rings certainly had its fair share of hard warriors, but what if we sent one of our own? What if David Goggins was the 12th member of the Fellowship of the Ring? We begin our journey in the village of Bree. Gandalf the Grey has left a letter of great urgency with the forgetful innkeeper of the Prancing Pony, Barlaman Butterbur, with instruction for it to be delivered to Hobbiton, while he himself departs in pursuit of the ring wraiths, in hope the letter will find its way to Frodo before it's too late. The letter warns him to depart for Rivendell immediately, and to look out for a man called Aragorn on his journey, for he is a man who can be trusted and will help him. Unfortunately, Butterbur was unable to find a messenger the following day or the next day. On the third day, he forgot his duty entirely. That is, until a strange-looking newcomer to Bree entered his tavern after dark. The appearance of the strange-looking man, drenched in sweat with the top of his bald head giving off steam like a billowing kettle, caused a nervous silence to descend upon the merry inhabitants, who eyed him warily, hands inching toward their weapons. "Good evening, friend," welcomed Butterbur, masking his surprise. "How may I assist you?" "Help? I ain't no bitch," the man snapped back, his tone direct and unyielding. Taken aback by this response, Butterbur carefully navigates the conversation. "My apologies. I meant no offense. Might I inquire who you are and whence you came?" "I'm a United States Army Ranger. Name's Goggins, and I'm from America," Goggins responded. He seemed unable to stand still for long, shifting on the balls of his feet like a horse raring to go. "A ranger, you say?" repeated the barman loudly, causing a murmur to run through the packed room of onlookers. "What brings you to Bree?" "I'm heading to Hobbiton," declared Goggins. "On what business, if I may ask?" asked Butterbur, finally recalling Gandalf's letter and sensing an opportunity to fulfill his old friend's request. "I met some old dude called Gandalf on Weathertop yesterday who asked me to check on some little bitches in Hobbiton." "Weathertop? But that's 100 miles away." Butterbur gasped, awe-stricken. "You covered that distance in a day?" "Yes, sir." "And you met Gandalf?" "Yes, sir." "Then might we speak privately?" Butterbur suggests, leading Goggins to a secluded room away from prying ears, generally reserved for hookers. Once alone, Butterbur spoke openly. "Gandalf left a letter with me for Mr. Underhill in Hobbiton. It's urgent. Since you're headed there and seem to be on similar business, would you be so kind as to deliver it?" "No shit. Gandalf asked me to find Mr. Underhill as well. He said he'd fuck you up if you hadn't sent it, but hey, I'll deliver it now," replied Goggins, taking the letter from Butterbur. "I'm eternally grateful, Mr. Goggins, sir. In that case, I'll prepare a room for you to rest before you depart," Butterbur offered. "I ain't no bitch. We're good to go now, baby. I'll reach Hobbiton by tomorrow evening." "But it's 120 miles to Hobbiton," exclaimed Butterbur in disbelief. "Surely your steed will require rest." "Don't have one because I'm not a pussy. I don't stop when I'm tired. I stop when I'm done," retorted Goggins, who had returned to bouncing on the balls of his feet like a crackhead itching for his next fix. "Stay hard," he bellowed, spit flying from his mouth. With a sharp nod, Butterbur quickly provided directions and advice for the journey ahead. "Very well then. Safe travels." Without another word, Goggins left to begin his 120-mile cross-country run to Hobbiton. "What an odd fellow," said Butterbur aloud to himself before he rejoined the congregation. Goggins' journey to Hobbiton was quite smooth for the most part, aside from a couple minor inconveniences along the way, including an altercation with Farmer Maggot and his large dogs. But Goggins had been warned of the overly grumpy farmer and remained undeterred. "I'ma fuck you up, Maggot," he shouted without looking back at the pursuing farmer as he continued without stopping to deal with the situation. At the 100-mile mark, Goggins shit himself, but again chose not to interrupt his run as he was still making good pace towards his destination. He arrived at Hobbiton shortly after sunset the following day. Checking the address on the envelope, which was now smudged as he had used it to wipe his ass of the excess shit many miles before. Still, he could just about discern the wizard's spidery handwriting beneath the brown marks. As dusk settled over Hobbiton, David Goggins reached the round green door of Bag End. After a brief moment to adjust the now nearly illegible envelope, he knocked firmly. "Open up, motherfucker," he said, knocking loudly. The door soon opened, revealing a puzzled Frodo Baggins, unprepared for both the sight or stench that invaded his nostrils. "Good evening," Frodo managed, his nose wrinkling slightly as he took in the towering, sweat-soaked figure. "Can I help you?" "Got a letter from Mr. Underhill. Urgent stuff from Gandalf," Goggins replied, handing over the stained envelope, which Frodo took gingerly, doing his best attempt to avoid the worst of the caking around the edges. While Frodo read the contents, Goggins, restless as ever, started lunging across the manicured garden. Frodo glanced up just in time to see Goggins shift from lunges to sprints, his physical prowess unmistakable. A postscript in the letter caught Frodo's eye. "By some called Strider." "Well, he certainly is a Strider," Frodo mumbled to himself, watching Goggins now tackle pull-ups on a low-hanging branch of the party tree. Sam, ever protective, leaned in and whispered, "Gandalf wouldn't have sent him if he weren't trustworthy." Both hobbits now stood in silence, observing the stranger before them, who seemed to embody the energy of the Shire itself through his endless exertions. It was then Sam voiced a naive concern. "The big folks are quite peculiar, and I've never seen a black one before. Is he one of those black riders Gandalf warned us about?" Frodo chuckled softly, reassuring his friend. "No, Sam, he's not one of the Black Riders. I can't imagine them bringing letters from Gandalf. The letter also has a postscript, which I believe matches this messenger. This Strider is a man, lean, dark, and tall." "He's certainly dark," shrugged Sam. "All that is gold does not glitter." "No, my dear Sam, I'm afraid the darkest thing about him is the smell. It stings the nose, but it is not foul as I would expect of the servants of the enemy." Reassured, Sam nodded, though he still watched Goggins with a mixture of awe and slight bewilderment. Meanwhile, Frodo folded the letter, considering the strange yet compelling presence this man brought into their peaceful world. As Goggins finally paused his physical feats to catch his breath, Frodo invited him inside. "Come, Mr. Strider. Let's discuss this letter more comfortably over a meal. You must be famished after such a journey." "Let's go, motherfuckers," shouted Goggins as he stepped into the warm, inviting hobbit hole. After taking up Frodo's offer of a bath before supper, Goggins stepped out into the dining room in a spare set of wizard's robes left behind by Gandalf the last time he had visited. "This shit's comfy as hell," said Goggins, fist-bumping Frodo. "You're most welcome. So, friend of Gandalf, what do we call you?" asked Frodo. "Goggins," he responded simply. "Very well, Mr. Goggins. Gandalf's letter urged that I leave at once, and I had intended on waiting till my birthday, but I think we should leave the day after tomorrow. That should give us enough time to pack up and prepare." "Stop being a little bitch," shouted Goggins. Taken aback, Frodo thought for a minute before revising his plan. "You're right, Mr. Goggins. Fine. It is better to be cautious and leave earlier than risk being late. We'll leave tomorrow morning after breakfast. Sam, can you make the arrangements?" "Yes, sir. Mr. Frodo, sir," responded Sam. "He your bitch?" inquired Goggins. "He's my gardener," replied Frodo politely, correcting Goggins and gesturing him to the seat by the fire. "So, what did Gandalf tell you? Is he coming?" asked Frodo. Goggins hesitated a moment before responding. "He mentioned something about destroying your ring. Sounded hella gay, but I got no problem with that man." "Gay. Then he must have had some good news regarding my ring," said Frodo, feeling a small wave of optimism about the impending journey he was about to undertake. After all, Gandalf had been gay when speaking to Goggins. He supposed it could only have been good news that had made the wizard happy. "Where is he now? Will he meet us on the way?" continued Frodo eagerly. "He's gonna see another wizard guy who might be able to help." "Destroy your ring," he said, replied Goggins awkwardly, not expecting the direction this conversation had taken. "Would you like to see it?" asked Frodo excitedly, having taken a liking to this friend of Gandalf's. Hey bro, I'm not into that shit, bro. Like, it's cool if you are, but that ain't me," responded Goggins, recoiling slightly as a wave of fear washed over him. Like the time P. Diddy had brushed past him at an award ceremony. He shivered despite the roaring fire. "I sometimes find myself fingering it," continued Frodo. "Aw, hell no," shouted Goggins, feeling revulsion at the sight of the little halfling. "He's trying to take my soul," thought Goggins, desperately trying to recall his Navy SEAL training. He couldn't let that happen. He had to find a way to outgay this little homosexual creature and guard against any advances. "What happens when you do?" he asked Frodo. "It disappears when you put a finger inside. I disappear." "This little motherfucker's got a magic asshole," thought Goggins. Frodo went on. "It feels cold now. It's been so long since I've slipped my finger inside it." "How many have used your ring?" asked Goggins bravely. "Well, my Uncle Bilbo, and before him, Gollum," Frodo replied. "Your uncle?" spat Goggins in disgust. "I think that's enough for one night," he said, standing up abruptly and making a mental note not to fall asleep around this perverted little deviant. "I've had Sam prepare the spare bedroom. It's the last door on the left." The next morning, after a restful night and a hearty breakfast provided by his gracious host, the group set out through the morning mist, leaving a still slumbering hobbiton behind. As they ventured forward, Goggins reflected on his conversation with Frodo the previous night. While he still didn't understand how destroying the Hobbit's overused ring would save the world, he decided he would continue with the mission he had committed to like a good soldier, no matter how hard it got. After all, it wasn't the strangest thing he'd ever heard of. He set a ferocious pace in the wizard's robes, feeling duty-bound to cuss out the hobbits for falling behind at regular intervals. Eventually getting sick of the lazy fuckers and opting instead to carry the two hobbits much of the way until they got to Farmer Maggot's farm, and after a brief altercation in which Goggins thoroughly assaulted the bad-tempered farmer and frightened off his dogs, they were back on their way. Arriving at Frodo's new residence at Crickhollow, where Merry and Pippin awaited them with ponies readied for the journey ahead. There they spent the night and enjoyed the mushrooms Frodo and Sam had quietly acquired while Goggins had been dealing with the farmer before continuing on the next leg of their journey, now accompanied by Merry and Pippin. "Stay hard," bellowed Goggins, startling the weary hobbits as they arrived at the Gate of Bree the following evening. As Goggins, Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin entered the prancing pony, they were greeted by a mixture of curiosity and wariness from the locals. Butterbur, the innkeeper of the prancing pony, upon noticing the group's entrance, did a double-take. His eyes widened in recognition as they landed on Goggins. Pushing through the bustling crowd, Butterbur approached them, his expression one of awe and gratitude. "Mr. Goggins," he exclaimed, barely containing his excitement. "Never in my years have I seen a message delivered with such incredible speed. You've outdone even the swiftest of our messengers. I heard tell of your swift passage through the land. You've done a great service, and I'm mightily impressed." Goggins nodded, accepting the praise with a modest grunt. "They don't know me, son." Butterbur leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a confidential whisper. "I must warn you, though," he said, glancing nervously towards a shadowed corner of the inn. "There's a man here, goes by the name of Strider. He's been asking after the hobbits, and if he means good, then I'm a hobbit." The group's attention shifted subtly towards the corner Butterbur had indicated. There, a tall, cloaked figure sat alone, his face obscured by the hood of his cloak, sipping his drink quietly, but with an air of alertness. "Strider, eh?" Goggins mused aloud, his gaze fixed on the mysterious figure. "Frodo, recalling the postscript in Gandalf's letter, felt a twinge of recognition. Gandalf mentioned him in his letter, called him a friend, Frodo informed Goggins, who looked back at him with a raised eyebrow. "I think I'll go talk to him," Goggins said nonchalantly, making his way across to the lone figure in the corner. As Butterbur left them to attend to his other guests, the hobbits watched anxiously as Goggins approached the mysterious Strider, ready to draw weapons should the need arise. There and back again, A Goggins Tale Part 2. The inhabitants of the Prancing Pony watched with bated breath as the strange dark man from the previous night now approached the cloaked Strider, sat at a shadowy table at the back of the room. Strider looked up as the man neared his table, a subtle, almost imperceivable shift under his cloak as he grasped his weapon in case of attack. Outwardly, he gave no reaction as Goggins reached him. "Yo, what's up, homie?" said Goggins, towering above the seated Strider. "You got a thing for little children? Like Epstein?" Strider was momentarily taken aback by the outlandish speech. "His tongue is uncouth, yet it does not sound like black speech," he thought. "Perhaps he is just an uncommonly large ruffian. I do not understand your meaning, traveler. Who are you?" "My name's Goggins. Who are you?" "I am by some called Strider." "What is your business with the hobbits?" "My own motherfucking business. That's what business I have," Goggins responded, clenching his fists at the suspicious man. "Then whom do you serve?" pressed Strider warily, preparing to unleash his sword if his suspicions proved true, that Goggins was a spy for the enemy that had managed to ensnare the ring-bearer. "I serve the United States of America." "Then you are from foreign lands?" Around them, the inn remained tense. All watched the two men, expecting things to kick off at any moment. "So, what business have you with the hobbits?" asked Strider once again. Goggins paused before responding. He decided to follow his gut instinct and see what direction this Strider took based on his information. "I was sent by Gandalf to protect these little fuckers." "Gandalf!" gasped Strider, not expecting this turn of events but still not letting down his guard. "I have also been tasked by Gandalf to find and protect the hobbits." "Take a seat, friend. Our paths are aligned for the time being. Share with me the details of your last meeting with Gandalf." And so, Goggins took a seat at the table and filled Strider in about running into Gandalf at Weathertop and the old wizard asking Goggins to help find and protect them, and his later agreement to aid the hobbits in reaching Rivendell safely. "So you are no spy, it would seem." "My apologies. I had to be careful. There are spies everywhere, and you are as dark as any servant of Mordor I have seen." "That's fucking racist." "I meant no insult by it, friend," said Aragorn swiftly, raising a hand in apology. "You spoke of your service to your country. You were a soldier then?" "United States Army Ranger. Survived 3 hell weeks." Strider nodded understandingly. "Hell indeed. The job of a ranger is a lonely one, fraught with perils and hardship. Heavy is its toll upon the body," said Strider, lowering his hood to reveal an extremely weather-beaten face covered in scars. "Damn, brother. You look like she took your house, car, and your kids. With a face like that, your life must be hell." "I am chief of the Rangers of the North." "Fuck yeah," said Goggins, leaning forward and fist-bumping Strider. "I respect the grind, brother. So what's the plan, Chief? Are you coming to Rivendell with us?" "I will join you on the journey, but the road is perilous. It could take us more than 2 weeks depending on how fast the halflings can walk." "Oh, they some lazy motherfuckers, but we can make it work," interjected Goggins. "We must be wary of the enemy. He has spies everywhere and worse upon the open road." "What spies?" asked Goggins. Strider gestured with a nod over to the bar. "That southerner over there is a spy. I fear he may inform the Black Riders of the Hobbit's presence here if we raise suspicion." And sure enough, as Goggins turned to look at the man, He appeared to be stealing furtive glances over towards Frodo and the other hobbits now sitting at a small table. "I'll kill that motherfucker," scowled Goggins, starting to rise from his chair, but Strider put a hand on his arm. "It is best to avoid attracting any more attention on ourselves, or the halflings, if it can be avoided." "Yes, Chief. Understood, sir. We should rest now and prepare to begin our journey before first light tomorrow to avoid our departure being noticed." Goggins nodded. As they spoke, there was suddenly a loud commotion behind them. "They're drawing far too much attention to themselves," said an uneasy Strider, looking over at the hobbits. "Stupid motherfuckers." Strider stood swiftly. "We must intervene before things get out of hand." "I got it," said Goggins, also standing. But at that moment, there was a mighty gasp in the room. Mr. Frodo had vanished. "Go," hissed an alarmed Strider. But as Goggins moved towards the center of the commotion in the room, he noticed out of the corner of his eye the squint-eyed Southerner spy moving excitedly towards the exit. He gestured with a nod to Strider to mind the hobbits while he dealt with the compromising spy. "Come here, motherfucker," Goggins roared seconds later as he chased down the terrified spy like a cop after a black perp. He returned to the inn a short time later, finding it still in a frenzied state with the hobbits and Strider nowhere to be seen. He looked over at Butterbur, who was busy calming his disgruntled guests. Seeing Goggins, he pointed a finger upstairs. Goggins got the message. A minute later, he entered the room with Strider and the hobbits, who looked absolutely terrified of the hooded Strider. "The Southerner?" asked Strider. "Dead. Stomped his ass out," replied Goggins casually. "Help us, Mr. Goggins, sir," cried a frightened Frodo, shielding behind him an equally terrified Sam, Pippin, and Merry. "Chill the fuck out, Frodo. He's on our side. This is the real Strider." "You are a friend of Gandalf?" asked Frodo. "But if he's Strider, then who are you?" he asked, looking at Goggins in confusion. "I thought you were Strider." "I'm just the guy he asked to help you, and I delivered the letter he left here with Butterbur. We're both on your side, little man. Both sent by Gandalf to help you." "How do I know?" began Frodo, but Goggins cut him off angrily. "What happened downstairs? You fuckers really know how to draw attention to yourselves. I accidentally put my finger in the ring. In front of all those people. You got serious problems there, little man. No wonder so many people trying to kill you. You a nasty motherfucker." "I agree. It was not a wise move, Frodo." "Gandalf told you to keep it hidden. Keep it safe," interjected Strider. "I'm sorry, Mr. Strider. My finger slipped in as I fell. It won't happen again, I promise." "You're damn right. I'ma leave your ass here if you do that shit again," barked Goggins in revulsion. "The ring has a mind of its own," nodded Strider, a look of sympathetic understanding on his now unhooded face. "Always it is trying to return to the hand of its master." "I'm missing something here," thought Goggins, thoroughly confused. Something wasn't adding up. "Which ring you talking about, dude?" he asked. "Back in your house, you told me how you was gay as hell, letting every dude, including your uncle, smash. But now you saying that ass ain't even yours. Some other guy owns that shit." Nervously, Frodo put a hand into his coat pocket and pulled out a shiny gold ring. "Oh, that's what you've been talking about," exclaimed Goggins in absolute relief, realizing his misunderstanding. "I thought all you motherfuckers were homosexual." "What is that, my good Goggins, sir?" asked Frodo innocently. "It's when a man makes love to another man." "Abomination," spat Sam in disgust. "Such a thing is unheard of in the Shire," cried Frodo, on the verge of tears from the disturbing information. "It is a work of evil contrived by the enemy. Corrupting man to such extent, he rabidly mates with other men," said Strider, unmistakable fear in his voice. "If the Dark Lord has his way, I expect this abomination will spread to all corners, unchecked, penetrating every living man. Glad we cleared that one up," said Goggins innocently after a couple minutes of awkward silence as the group imagined the horrors. Mr. Strider, I will choose to trust you based on the advice of Mr. Goggins and accept your offer to accompany us on our journey to Rivendell, said Frodo, giving Strider a small smile. What would you advise me to do? Should we wait here for Gandalf or go? I would counsel we leave before first light tomorrow to avoid our departure being known of till we are far away. It's a 2-week journey at best, and we will be lucky if we can reach the other side unscathed. You can rest here in my room to avoid unfriendly eyes keeping watch on the rooms reserved for hobbits on the ground floor. Thank you, Strider, said Frodo. After what felt like only minutes since they had laid down and closed their eyes, they were being violently shaken awake by Goggins. Even Strider woke with a start, drawing his blade and jabbing the air in fright. He had fallen asleep on an uncomfortable-looking wooden chair by the window. It's 4 a.m., bitches. Time to go, he roared like a drill sergeant. After some hushed grumbling, they all got ready. The sky was still dark as they hastily consumed a quick breakfast of bread, cheese, and some dried fruits. The innkeeper, Butterbur, had kindly arranged ponies for their journey, ensuring they were well provisioned for the road ahead. Stay hard, bellowed Goggins, rallying the weary hobbits as they mounted their ponies. Strider led the way, his keen eyes scanning the horizon, ever alert for any sign of danger. The hobbits followed closely, with Goggins bringing up the rear on foot, opting against a horse, his imposing presence keeping the hobbits moving forward. We'll leave the road as soon as we're out of sight of Bree, said Strider from the front. It's too dangerous and is likely being watched. As dawn broke over Bree, the group left the main road for the more secretive path that Strider knew well. This route, although longer and more treacherous, would keep them hidden from the prying eyes of enemy spies and the Black Riders. Come on, bitches, shouted Goggins at regular intervals from the rear, ensuring the hobbits remained alert and did not slow down. I'm not sure I like this, Mr. Goggins, whispered Sam to a Frodo, swaying on his pony due to tiredness. Unfortunately for Sam, the whisper carried to Goggins' ears, who promptly pulled Sam down violently from his pony and began beating him. Do not intervene, said Strider, holding up a hand to stop the others getting off their ponies to help Sam. His methods may be strange to you, but it is the way of the Rangers, he said in a reassuring voice. Poor discipline within the ranks must be dealt with swiftly, or we will all fall to ruin and the abomination will spread. You just a motherfucking hater, barked Goggins, walking away from the downed hobbit who winced as he pulled himself back onto his pony, looking a bloody mess. After witnessing the heavy beating Goggins had administered to Sam, there was no further grumbling amongst the hobbits, and they maintained a good pace. Days passed in a blur of travel and training, with Goggins pushing the hobbits to their limits during breaks. We don't stop when we tired. We stop when we done, he would shout, his relentless drive terrifying. Despite their initial reluctance, the hobbits found themselves growing stronger, their spirits lifted by Goggins' relentless energy and Strider's quiet assurance. Even Strider began to weary at the uncompromising pace Goggins was forcing, even though he rode upon a steed and Goggins remained on foot. This is no mere mortal. He must be one of the Mire, reborn in Middle-earth. He thought in reverence at Goggins' inhuman capabilities and wondered how capable he'd be in battle. As the days turned into nights, their journey was marked by long silences and quiet conversations. Goggins shared stories of his past, his relentless pursuit of endurance, his tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, and battles with his own demons. The hobbits, in turn, spoke of the Shire, their simple lives, and their longing to return to the safety of their homes. Strider, ever vigilant, led them through hidden valleys and along forgotten trails, his knowledge of the land invaluable but outdated and corrected regularly by Goggins' own ranger knowledge. He taught them how to move silently, to blend into their surroundings, and to stay alert for any sign of danger. Shut the fuck up. You hear that? That's a bitch-ass rabbit. Merry, he said, pointing a finger at the frightened hobbit. Go kill that motherfucker. He handed Merry a standard-issue carbon steel U.S. Navy SEAL combat knife and gave him a sharp nudge forward. Merry returned a short while later, proudly holding up his kill for all to see and looking very pleased with himself. "Confirmed kill," shouted Goggins. "Excellent work, soldier. Sam, get this cooked." Sam looked annoyed but followed the order without hesitation. That evening, as they gathered around a small fire, enjoying the now-cooked rabbit, Frodo spoke up. "Strider, do you really think we'll make it to Rivendell?" Strider looked at him, his expression serious but kind. "We will, Frodo, but the road is still long and fraught with danger. We must remain vigilant." "And what if we encounter the Black Riders?" Pippin asked, his voice trembling. "Then I got this Glock with me," interjected Goggins, pulling a strange mechanical-looking contraption from a concealed holster. "A couple slugs should put one of those fools to sleep." "Mighty is the weaponry of the mire," said Strider in admiration. "I stashed some more gear on Weathertop when I met Gandalf. An assault rifle, couple grenades, some body armor, and a shit ton of bullets." As the stars shone overhead, they drifted off to sleep, the weight of their mission heavy on their minds. Knowledge of the inevitable abomination, should they fail, strengthened their determination. Morning came swiftly, the first light of dawn breaking over the hills. They quickly packed up camp and set off once more. Eventually, the landscape began to change. The terrain grew rockier, and the air turned cooler as they reached closer to Weathertop. Strider guided them with unerring precision, his knowledge of the land evident as they navigated the increasingly treacherous path. By the time they reached Weathertop, the sun was beginning to set. Strider led them to a sheltered spot on the hillside, a natural fortification offering some protection from the elements and any prying eyes. "We have reached Weathertop far sooner than I expected. We'll rest here for the night," Strider announced, looking pleased but wary as he dismounted and helped the hobbits with their packs. "I need to look for any signs or messages Gandalf may have left. I will be back soon. Light no fire and stay close." "I'll be back soon too. I gotta go get my shit," said Goggins, also leaving. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape of Weathertop. The hobbits huddled together, their nerves on edge in the gathering darkness. Strider and Goggins had both departed, leaving the hobbits alone and vulnerable. Despite Strider's assurance, a deep sense of unease settled over them. "Do you think they'll be back soon?" asked Pippin anxiously. "I hope so," replied Sam, trying to sound braver than he felt. Although not particularly fond of Mr. Goggins, due primarily to the hefty beating he'd taken at his hands, he would still have felt safer in that place with him there. "We just need to stay together and stay quiet." As the night grew darker, a chill wind swept over Weathertop. The hobbits strained their ears, hoping to catch any sound of their returning companions. Instead, an eerie silence settled over the hill, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. Suddenly, a distant sound reached their ears. A faint, otherworldly wail that sent shivers down their spines. The hobbits instinctively drew closer together, their eyes darting around in fear. "Do you hear that?" whispered Pippin, his voice barely audible. "It's those Black Riders," shrieked Merry. Before they could react, dark, menacing shapes emerged from the shadows, gliding silently towards them. The hobbits froze in terror as the ring wraiths closed in, their presence suffocating. Frodo clutched the ring in his pocket, feeling its weight like never before. "Stay back," he shouted, though his voice trembled. The ring wraiths paid no heed to his warning. One of them stepped forward, drawing a long, wicked blade. The air around him seemed to grow colder, the shadows deeper. "Give us the ring," hissed the foremost wraith, his voice chilling and venomous. Just as the ring wraith raised his blade to strike, a deafening roar echoed across Weathertop. "Stay hard, motherfuckers." Goggins burst onto the scene, a whirlwind of deadly precision. He was clad in full military gear, an assault rifle slung across his chest, grenades hanging from his belt, wearing body armor and a helmet. Without hesitation, he charged at the foremost ring wraith, tackling him to the ground and plunging a knife repeatedly into the wraith's ethereal form. The wraith let out an unearthly scream, writhing under Goggins' relentless assault. The other ring wraiths turned their attention to this unexpected threat, but Goggins was already on his feet, his rifle blazing. Bullets tore through the night, striking the ring wraiths and sending them reeling. "Eat, lead motherfuckers," roared Goggins. One by one, the ring wraiths began falling back, the sheer ferocity of Goggins' attack overwhelming them. But Goggins did not relent. He lobbed a grenade into their midst, the explosion lighting up the night and scattering the ring wraiths. They fled into the shadows, their shrieks of fear and pain echoing across Weathertop. In the midst of the chaos, Frodo found himself cornered by the clearly injured wraith Goggins had mauled. It raised its blade, ready to strike. Time seemed to slow as the blade descended, but before it could reach Frodo, Goggins leapt in front of him, taking the knife in his shoulder, but managing to save the little hobbit. "I'm hit," shouted Goggins, roaring in pain and fury. He grabbed the ringwraith by the throat, forcing it to drop its knife. "Not today, motherfucker," he growled, driving his knife into the wraith's abdomen. The ringwraith screeched and disintegrated into the night like a little bitch, leaving behind only its tattered robes. Goggins, breathing heavily and clutching his wounded shoulder, turned to Frodo and the other hobbits. "You okay, little man?" Frodo, shaken but unharmed, nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Goggins. You saved my life. You saved all our lives. It ain't nothing, brother." At that moment, Strider returned, his sword drawn and his eyes wide with concern. "What happened here?" "Where was you, motherfucker?" asked Goggins. "I was scouting up ahead when I heard fighting. I came as fast as I could," replied Strider, looking slightly embarrassed. "These little bitches tried to kill the hobbits, but they weren't shit." "You're hurt," said Strider, seeing Goggins' bloody shoulder. "That ain't nothing. I ain't no bitch." Strider stooped down and picked up the wraith's blade. "This is beyond my skill to heal. We must get you to Rivendell swiftly before you pass into the Shadow Realm. You've been stabbed by a Morgul blade, my friend. Dark magic is infused in the blades of the enemy." He straightened up and surveyed the scene. "You killed a Nazgul?" he gasped, sounding shaken. "Damn straight. Took that motherfucker's soul. But your own blade survived," continued Strider in awe, looking down at the slightly smoking blade still in Goggins' hand. "Standard issue carbon steel. This baby would cut through 100 of those bitch-ass niggers with ease. You did well, Mr. Goggins. You are the only man to have killed a Nazgul. I appreciate that, Chief, but we need to move out before those fuckers regroup." Goggins, still limping from his injury, stubbornly refused the steed offered by Strider. Determined to push through the pain, he marched alongside the hobbits, his gruff demeanor masking the toll the injury was taking on him. As the day wore on, the group traveled through dense forests and across rocky terrains, avoiding well-trodden paths to evade their pursuers. The impact of Goggins' wound grew more pronounced with each passing hour, and by nightfall, it was clear that even he needed attention. "We'll stop here for the night," announced Strider, selecting a small, secluded spot in a forest clearing. The area was surrounded by thick cover, offering some measure of concealment. "Merry Pippin, gather wood for a fire. We need to tend to Mr. Goggins' wound." "Sit down, Mr. Goggins," said Strider, gesturing to a flat rock near the fire. "Let me take a look at that shoulder." As Strider tended to his wound, Goggins began to fade in and out of consciousness. "You must resist the pull of the Nazgul's poison," urged Strider. "It feels like that hooker back on duty who tried to suck out my soul in Afghanistan." "You have experienced this before?" asked Strider, taken aback. "Don't tell me you've never had a bad bitch try take your soul." "I have not faced that trial. Nor do I believe I am ready for it." "I think I shit myself," said Goggins, feeling a warmth below and wincing in pain as he turned to check. "I cannot heal you here." I have found you some athelas to slow the poison of the enemy, but only Elrond can save you now. He is the greatest of healers. We're still 4 days from Rivendell. We must hurry if we are to save you from passing from your wound." He cleaned the wound with water, then applied crushed herbs he carried in a small leather pouch. "This will help with the pain and keep the infection at bay." "That shit smells hella good," said Goggins, smelling the wholesome aroma of the athelas. Goggins watched in silence as Strider worked, his jaw clenched against the discomfort. The hobbits, having finished their task, gathered around the fire, their faces illuminated by its soft glow. "Is Mr. Goggins going to be all right?" asked Frodo in concern. "He'll be fine," assured Strider, wrapping a clean bandage around the wound. "But we must get him to Rivendell quickly." As the company pressed onward towards Rivendell, Goggins' wound continued to take its toll. He fought through the pain with his usual grit and determination, refusing to let it slow him down. Strider led the way, ever vigilant, while the hobbits struggled to keep pace. By the time they reached the borders of Rivendell, the hobbits were exhausted and Goggins was delirious. The familiar sense of dread loomed over them as they neared the ford of Bruinen. Just as they were about to cross the ford, the eerie screeches of the Black Riders echoed through the air. The Ringwraith, relentless in their pursuit, had caught up to them. Strider drew his sword. "They're here," shouted Strider, his voice tense. "Stay close, and whatever happens, keep moving towards Rivendell." The hobbits huddled together in fear, their eyes darting to Goggins for help. Despite his injury, Goggins readied his assault rifle. "Stay hard, little bitches," he growled. "We ain't done yet." The Ringwraiths appeared from the shadows, their dark forms riding menacingly on their black horses. Their presence seemed to drain the warmth from the surroundings, casting fear over the group. Goggins moved forward on his steed, his rifle at the ready. "Spooky-ass bitches, come get some," he yelled, opening fire. The burst of gunfire shattered the night, bullets ripping through the air and striking the horses. The steeds screamed in pain, collapsing under the assault. The Wraith were thrown from their mounts, their ghostly forms writhing on the ground. Though the bullets did not kill the Ringwraiths, they caused them immense pain, their ethereal bodies convulsing with each hit. Goggins continued to fire, sheer will and focus clear upon his face as he emptied his magazine into the dark figures. "Run across the ford," shouted Strider, pushing the hobbits forward. "Now!" As Goggins finished firing his last rounds at the approaching Black Riders, he saw a powerful wave rising from the Bruinen River, forming a mighty flood which came crashing down upon the Ringwraiths. As the adrenaline ebbed away, his vision blurred. Goggins' grip on his assault rifle slackened, and he slumped forward, slipping from his horse. He fell to the ground, unconscious, his body finally succumbing to the cumulative toll of his injuries and exertion. There and back again. A Goggins Tale. Part 3, in the Valley of Rivendell. Goggins awoke in a soft bed to the warm glow of sunlight filtering through the ornate windows of the room. The air was fresh, and the soothing sound of distant waterfalls filled his ears. He blinked, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep. As his vision cleared, he saw Gandalf sitting beside his bed, a look of relief upon his face. "Good morning, David," Gandalf greeted him warmly, his eyes twinkling. "It's good to see you awake finally." Goggins tried to sit up, wincing slightly as a dull ache brought back memories of his recent mission. "What the fuck? Where am I?" he asked, his voice raspy. "You are in Rivendell, in the House of Elrond," Gandalf replied calmly. "You've been through quite an ordeal, my friend. But rest assured, you are safe now." Goggins looked around, taking in his surroundings. The room was beautifully adorned, with intricate tapestries and elegant furniture. It was a stark contrast to the harsh environments he was accustomed to. Gandalf leaned forward, his expression growing serious. "I must thank you, David. You saved the hobbits and took a Morgul blade meant for Frodo. Elrond himself tended to your wound. The poison of the Nazgul is not easily healed, but thanks to Elrond's skill and your remarkable resilience, you have been given a second chance. Who's that? He a doctor? Elrond is Lord of Rivendell and the greatest healer in Middle-earth. It is no small feat to recover from such a wound, and without his help, you would soon have passed into the Shadow Realm. Goggins flexed his shoulder, surprised at the lack of pain. My stabbing arm feels good as new, he remarked, admiration for Elrond's healing abilities evident in his tone. We could have used a guy like that in Afghanistan and Iraq, said Goggins, recalling his injured brothers on duty with him on his tours. Man, I got some knee problems he can help with too. Later, responded Gandalf. First, we must ready you for the great feast that is to be held in your honor. In my honor? Asked Goggins, taken aback. Yes, David. Your deeds already set you amongst the greats. While you were resting, I probed you deeply. You motherfucker. What do you mean you probed me? Cut in Goggins, eyes wide in disgust. Your mind, David. I looked at your memories, corrected Gandalf. Bro, that's fucked up. You can't invade another man's privacy like that. That's some NSA shit right there. Fear not, for I took great care to avoid any personal memories, but you'll pardon my mentioning your beating a farmer maggot was entirely unnecessary, replied Gandalf disapprovingly. Nonetheless, your actions in saving the hobbits, running 120 miles on foot without break between Bree and the Shire, are triumphs which shall be recorded in the books of lore, as will your great victory over the Witch King with nothing but a knife. You fought 9 ring wraiths and managed to kill one. I shudder to think what would have happened had you not been there. The hobbits would likely have been killed and the ring lost to the enemy. No, my good David, it is likely you saved the world. Those little motherfuckers were screaming louder than the ring wraiths, like little bitches when on Weathertop, and that homeless guy Strider conveniently disappeared when the fighting started. They are absurd little creatures, chuckled Gandalf with a warm smile. And that homeless guy is Aragorn, son of Arathorn, the rightful heir to the throne of Gondor. No shit, but what is this ring everyone wants? Asked Goggins. The ring was created by the Dark Lord Sauron, and it contains much of his power. It grants the wearer incredible powers, but it will corrupt the bearer to darkness given enough time. It is dangerous. Very dangerous. What powers? Asked Goggins, intrigued. Powers are granted according to the wearer. The more powerful and capable the wearer, the more power he would wield through the ring. A being such as yourself would be capable of wielding much more of its power than a little halfling. It would enhance the capability you already possess and more. You mean like steroids? Before Gandalf could answer, a loud bell rang out. It is time for the great feast. Let's go, said Gandalf. Goggins lifted his soft bed covers and looked down. He was entirely naked. What the fuck? He growled. Gandalf again chuckled. So impressed were the elf maidens by your proportions, they decided not to dress you. One indeed of their number has expressed interest in marriage, if you are willing, but I digress. Don't tell me they ain't ever seen a big black. Gandalf cut him off, pointing to intricately stitched elven robes hung by the window. They look gay as hell, scowled Goggins in disgust. You have been gifted elven robes of high honor. Your own garments wear torn and soiled. They will be purified and repaired. Interestingly, the elves took particular interest in your armor and are studying its properties to improve their own. Thus far, your armor has proven sturdier and more resilient than mithril. That's proprietary technology, shouted an outraged Goggins. Y'all are a bunch of intrusive motherfuckers. As for your weapon, continued Gandalf, ignoring Goggins' indignation, your metal bow is of cunning design. You mean my Glock and assault rifle? Indeed, an elf has already been killed during their study. Don't forget gun safety, responded Goggins, shaking his head at the incompetence of the elves. Indeed, after that mishap, Lord Elrond ordered a cessation of all further study. They have asked that you demonstrate your weapons so they may learn and replicate. 1,000 elves, thus armed, could perhaps even storm Mordor. Elves with guns, laughed Goggins. Sure, but they gonna need training to use those weapons. I'ma put those motherfuckers through Hell Week. I agree, but we can discuss the details later. It's time for the feast. A short time later, Goggins, in his elaborate elven robes, followed Gandalf into an enormous pavilion, at the center of which sat an enormous long table stacked high with vegan food. At the table were already seated many elves, a couple dwarves, men, and the hobbits, who waved and smiled at him. Mr. Goggins, called an important-looking elf, sitting at the head of the table. Please, your place is here. It is the place of honor, he said, gesturing to the seat at his right hand. Gandalf sat next to Goggins on his left and introduced them. This is Elrond, Lord of Rivendell. Pleased to meet you, brother, said Goggins, politely holding out his hand. There was a short moment of confusion, after which Elrond realized this was a form of greeting and clasped hands awkwardly with Goggins. Man, your hands are soft as hell. I ain't never met a woman with softer hands. Thank you, Mr. Goggins, smiled Elrond, interpreting his words as a compliment. As the feast continued, Goggins found himself deep in conversation with Gandalf and Elrond. The grandeur of Rivendell, combined with the lively chatter of the other guests, created a surreal backdrop for their discussion. Tell me, Mr. Goggins, Elrond began, his keen eyes studying Goggins with interest. How did you manage to kill a wraith with nothing but your knife? Such a feat is unheard of. Goggins leaned back to think, noticing as he did all eyes at the table focused intently upon him. My Navy SEAL training. Those spooky bitches didn't know what hit them. I've been through 3 Hell Weeks, broken every bone in my legs and still continued the fight. And when I seen those fuckers, I thought, fuck, yeah, I'm ready. So I tackled that motherfucker to the ground and went to work. He screamed like a little bitch. Elrond nodded thoughtfully. Your methods are impressive. Your resilience and skills are unlike anything we've seen. I would like you to demonstrate your weapons for us, so that we may learn and perhaps replicate them for our own defenses. Goggins raised an eyebrow. Sure, I can do that. But I need you to make me more special arrows. I'm running low. Elrond smiled. It will be done. Under your direction, our craftsmen will work on creating more for you. At that moment, a stout elderly dwarf with a long braided beard took the seat Gandalf had vacated next to Goggins. It was Gloin, a dwarf of great renown. Well met, Mr. Goggins. Gloin greeted with enthusiasm. I've heard tales of your armor, said to be stronger than Mithril. What is it made of? Goggins looked at the dwarf, recognizing the eagerness in his eyes. Class 4 armor plates and Kevlar. The plates can stop any arrows, swords, and even your battle axes. Gloin's eyes widened in excitement. Remarkable. Such protection could be invaluable to my kin. Would you be willing to come to our kingdom of Erebor as a friend and guest of the dwarves and share with us the secrets of this armor? We could forge a new line of defenses for our warriors. Perhaps it will allow us to retake our lost kingdom of Moria. Goggins nodded and fist bumped the old dwarf. For sure, little homie, I got you. Gloin laughed heartily. The dwarves will be forever grateful for your knowledge, friend Goggins. I offer you the service of my son Gimli as small payment. Goggins looked across the table where Gloin was gesturing to a younger, strong-looking dwarf who gave a small nod. As the feast came to a close, Goggins, Gandalf, Strider, and Elrond were summoned outside to attend to a pressing matter. They found themselves facing a captured enemy spy, held down on the ground by elven guards. Despite Gandalf's best efforts to extract information, the spy remained defiant. Strider stepped forward, looking grim as he tried to intimidate the spy into breaking his silence. When that failed to produce fruit, Strider began brutally kicking the spy hard, forcing him to curl into a defense position. "That's it, bro. Harder, right in the fucking balls," shouted Goggins, encouraging Strider. But the spy remained resolute, refusing to divulge any information or make a sound beyond groans of pain. Frustrated at the stubborn spy's silence after Gandalf's intimidation and Strider's rough handling, Elrond ordered the spy be taken to the cells. "Wait, I got this," interrupted Goggins, stepping forward, offering to take a shot at interrogating the spy. His request for a bucket of water and a linen cloth raised eyebrows among the others present, but they obliged nonetheless. "We call this waterboarding," Goggins told the smirking spy. Within minutes of his enhanced interrogation, the spy broke, spilling the secrets of Saruman's treachery. He revealed the Dark Wizard's plan to unleash an enormous army upon Rohan, with the king already under his spell. The revelation left those present in shock and dismay. "Of Saruman's treachery, Elrond and I were already aware," said Gandalf gravely, "but the news of another army is most worrisome." "Indeed," responded Elrond, "this will have to be explored in greater detail at the Great Council tomorrow. In the meantime, I thank you again, Mr. Goggins. You have proven yourself once again most capable, and I would have you present at tomorrow's council. Your help will be crucial in the war to come." As the others left and the spy was led away to a cell, Strider approached. "Good job, brother," he greeted the ranger encouragingly. Strider placed a hand upon Goggins' shoulder and inclined his head in sign of respect. "It is I who is in awe at your skill, brother. It is now clear to me which of us is the greater ranger. If I come into my own, then I would make you Prince of Ithilien, a commander of the armies of Gondor and a lord of men." "Shit, Lord Goggins, that's got a nice ring to it," he thought before recalling his earlier conversation with Gandalf, where the old wizard had mentioned Strider was not his name, and nor was he merely a ranger. "Strider, that your code name?" asked Goggins, appreciating the sentiment. "Some in Bree call me Strider, but my true name is Aragorn." "Well, Aragorn, brother, stay hard when you in power. Your words carry great meaning." Early the following morning, as the sun bathed the valley of Rivendell in its golden warmth, the Council of Elrond gathered, tension heavy in the air. Seated between Frodo and Gandalf, Goggins observed the assembly with suspicion, his gaze flickering from one face to another as the proceedings began. Gandalf rose to address the council and spoke of Isengard's betrayal and its imminent threat. Goggins listened intently, wondering if a covert strike might be a feasible option to neutralize the treacherous wizard. Next, Gloin, representing the dwarves, recounted the hardships faced by his people and their desperate struggle to reclaim their lost kingdom. The cloaked messenger from Mordor and his offer of reward in exchange for information on Bilbo and the recovery of the ring. Legolas, the elf, followed next, his expression grave as he revealed the escape of Gollum, a development that cast a shadow of uncertainty over their plans. Then, it was Elrond's turn to speak. Rising from his seat, the Lord of Rivendell turned his piercing gaze upon Goggins, introducing him to the assembly. "And now," Elrond began, his voice carrying the weight of ages of wisdom, "allow me to introduce a newcomer to our midst, one who has already proven himself a stalwart ally in our struggle against the darkness." All eyes turned to Goggins, who met their scrutiny with a steely gaze. But before Elrond could continue, Boromir rose to his feet, his expression clouded with suspicion as he fixed his gaze upon Goggins. "I must object," my lord, Elrond Boromir declared defiantly. "He is one of the Haradrim. I have seen his dark kind before, striking down the valiant men of Gondor." "Motherfucker!" shot back Goggins, rising from his seat. But Gandalf raised a hand, silencing all in the gathering. "Fool! He has been sent by the Valar to aid us. Without his aid, the ring may already have been lost." "You do not know your peril," Aragorn told Boromir, thinking of the spy Goggins had effortlessly broken last night and fearing similar fate for the ignorant Boromir if he were not careful. Goggins bristled at the accusation. His jaw clenched, but he chose to remain silent. Elrond raised his hand, silencing the murmurs that had erupted from Boromir's accusation. "Listen, all of you, to the deeds of this man," Elrond began firmly. "David Goggins, as you know him, stands among us not as an enemy, but as a savior. He risked his life to save the halflings from the clutches of the enemy. He took the Morgul blade intended for Frodo, shielding him from harm. And he faced the Witch King of Angmar in combat with nothing but a small knife and emerged victorious, striking a blow against the Dark Lord himself. With the death of the Witch King, Sauron has lost one of his greatest commanders, thanks to the bravery and skill of Mr. Goggins. You have yet to rival his feats, Boromir." As Elrond spoke, those within the gathering looked upon Goggins with growing respect and admiration. "And let us not forget," Elrond continued, "the armor and weapons of Goggins, forged in some mighty unknown place. His armor, comprised of Class 4 plates and Kevlar, is sturdier than mithril and capable of withstanding the deadliest of blows. His weapons, the metal bow, are of cunning design, capable of striking down foes from a distance with deadly accuracy. There is much we can gain from our honored guest." The council members listened attentively, some nodding hungrily at the description of Goggins' formidable arsenal. But now, Elrond's tone grew once again grim. "We face a greater peril than ever before. The ring, forged by the Dark Lord in the fires of Mount Doom, has resurfaced, and with it, the shadow of Mordor looms over Middle-earth once more. Sauron seeks to reclaim his lost prize and unleash untold darkness and suffering upon our world." He paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "Our only hope lies in destroying the ring. No longer can we keep the thing hidden or sail west, leaving behind the troubles of Middle-earth, for surely the darkness would spread to every corner. But the ring cannot be destroyed by any means which we have here," said one of the elf lords. "No, it must be taken deep into Mordor and cast back into the fiery chasm from whence it came. One of you must do this." Elrond's words hung heavy in the air as the council exchanged glances. One does not simply walk into Mordor. Its black gates are guarded by more than just orcs. There is evil there that does not sleep. The Great Eye is ever watchful. It is a barren wasteland, riddled with fire, ash, and dust. The very air you breathe is a poisonous fume. Not with 10,000 men could you do this. It is folly," declared Boromir. At this, the elf Legolas arose emphatically. "Have you heard nothing Lord Elrond has said? The ring must be destroyed," he announced loudly to the gathering. To this Gimli, the dwarf stood in outrage, challenging the elf, "And I suppose you think you're the one to do it." But Goggins raised a hand at the angry dwarf. "Sit your punk ass down, Gimli." "Yes, my lord," said the dwarf, nodding apologetically as he resumed his seat. This intervention was sufficient to quell a full-scale argument from breaking out. Discussion remained fierce between the elves Boromir and Gandalf. Goggins heard a small voice next to him. He turned to see Frodo, bravely accepting the quest. "Speak up, little man. Say that shit with your chest," he encouraged. "I will take it," shouted Frodo, finally being heard over the angry voices. "I will take the ring to Mordor, though I do not know the way." There was a collective intake of breath, followed by a pause, and then one by one Gandalf, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas pledged to go with Frodo, along with Sam, Merry, and Pippin. Frodo then turned to Goggins. "Please, Mr. Goggins, sir, it would comfort me greatly if you came with us." Goggins nodded, accepting the invitation. "Sure, I'll carry your bitch ass to Mordor." Although none said it aloud, all within the company felt a great relief that Goggins was coming with them. At this, Elrond stood, addressing the company. 10 companions. "So be it. You shall be the Fellowship of the Ring."
Thanks for joining us on this adventure. If you enjoyed the journey and are eager for more wild fan fiction, Don't forget to hit that like button, share with your fellow fans, and subscribe for more episodes. And if you're as enchanted by the idea of Middle-earth meeting Hogwarts as we are, make sure to check out our series exploring this magical crossover. Your support brings these worlds to life. Until next time, keep the fantasy alive.